we're going to just be looking at managing your inventory and how you can use that to increase your profitability in your business.
You're still,
everybody's
still Terry Ann.
Start broadcast. Go back.
Thank you.
Nobody heard you.
I don't have a start broadcast. I have a show my screen, record.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're joining us today. We're going to be talking about managing your inventory for increased profitability and see how you can use that and start making some more money in your stores. Profit systems, who are we? Our roots go back to the home furnishings industry back to 1897 when the Starks started their furniture business. Later on, they built their software to kind of do a solution to address their needs of their own store. That just developed on into first giving it to people that were their friends who were in the furniture business, and we've grown today to where we provide over 1,000 retailers with the tools that they need with the software. So we do have a little bit of background in the furniture business. Today you've got me, and I am Terry Ann Makings. I have been with Profit Systems for 26 years. I started out in the software department and am now in the education department, so do a lot of training with clients and helping with other setups. And then we also have Lee Rochelle with us.
Good day. Thank you for joining us. I am Lee Rochelle. I'm with Customer Relations at Profit Systems. I started in the furniture business selling Lazy Boys in 1978, and in the interim had an opportunity and was blessed with relationships with owners and businesses. I ran retail furniture stores over a period of over 20 years. I also had a 10-year experience in the consulting area, working with both new clients and existing clients, having visited well over 100 retailers. Did some work with some manufacturers as well and helping them manage their data processing. So we are excited today about taking you through a bit of a tour on how to manage inventory and the kinds of tools that are available or that you should be aware of that you might find useful in being a more successful merchant.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Just a couple housekeeping things for you. The presentation will be right around 30 minutes, and then we will have just a Q&A session for the last 15 minutes. You'll notice on your GoToWebinar panel, there's a place there that you can type in your questions. So as you think of questions, go ahead and put those in there, and then at the end of the presentation, we will get them all addressed. We are going to move along fairly quickly, so if you have more questions afterwards or need any information, you can always contact us at the psi.info@profitsystems.com. We are recording this, and we will have this available to you. We'll be sending you a link so that you can watch it again later or pass it on to anybody else. And again, if you've got any questions, you'll have the question box that's over on the right on the panel, and you can put those in there for us. So what are you going to get out of today's webinar? We're going to look at how do you spot your winners and keep those best sellers in stock. We also want to look at how you can base your reorder quantities on business intelligence. So I need to look at how things have been selling and what's been happening in my business when I'm looking at reordering my merchandise. And we also want to become more nimble in reacting to those trends, so we can do that more on the spur of the moment rather than just waiting and do it once a year. And finally, we're hoping that you'll gain greater control of your inventory and that you will be able to increase your profitability by doing that. Okay. So things that you're going to want to start thinking about. Question your current paradigms. What can I do better? You're going to want to seek some good information. Where can I find that information? Then once that I have that information, what do I do to take the next step? How do I get going with that information, and how do I utilize that? And then finally, how are you going to leverage your business intelligence? So we need to first define what it is and then decide how we're going to start utilizing that.
And I think it's important when we talk about the, question your current paradigms. If you want to back up to that slide there for a moment, Tyrion. What can I do better? First, we have to agree that possibly there's an opportunity out there to accumulate information different from the way I've been doing it, and I'm hoping that that's what we'll leave you with. You've been kind enough to join us, and I'm hoping at the end of this session you may have some notes that you've taken that would say to and a bit of an action plan where you would be able to say to yourself, hey, you know what, I never thought about approaching managing my inventory that way. So we're going to ask you to step outside of some of the paradigms that you have. We're going to talk about where can you get the information. Each of you may have your own methods of accumulating information. Some of it may be manual. Maybe you're in a data management system already. But certainly there are certain kinds of information that we're going to want to have in front of us. And then we're going to talk about business intelligence, and we're going to take you to a different place than just staring at a list. And we hope to share with you some opportunity that's available in the marketplace, and possibly even in your current environment, to become smarter with the information that we've got and to manage it a little more effectively. And the last thing we want to leave you with today is what do I do with it now? I have a mandate that I've often used with individuals when I was on the road with them, and when we would get toward the end of the week and we would start talking about some of the action plans that we're going to be that we agreed on that might be beneficial in moving a business forward. And my mantra was always, when you come into the office tomorrow, what am I going to do today that's going to grow my business tomorrow? So when I'm sitting at my desk, I should be thinking all the time about what am I going to be doing right now that's going to grow my business tomorrow. And all the other things that happen, and of course there's a ton of them, and this is part of what we're hoping to leave you with today. There's a ton of distractions that are impacting your day, but if we can give you an opportunity to say, hey, you know what, maybe if I focus on this, I can make a difference. And that's our goal.
So the first thing let's look at is how do we spot our winners and how do we keep the best sellers in stock more often?
And typically, what we see and what we work with as a retailer is some kind of a list. How many have I sold? Which items are giving me high margins? Which items have a low return rate? In other words, my customers are not sending them back very frequently. And which vendors allow me some control over ordering? Which ones make it easier for me to order? And so typically we've got some very simple lists that we use to manage this information. There are alternatives, however. If you've got a good analysis of your inventory performance, if you've got a system that's actually creating a dynamic view of your inventory, in other words, what's happening, what kind of trends are going on. And for those of you, the word dynamic is an interesting term. For those of you who may not be familiar with where it fits in as an adjective, I would Google the word, because if you think about your inventory, a dynamic view of your inventory, what you're going to be thinking about at that point then is what's happening with it, not what happened to it, not what happened last week or last month, but what's the difference between what's happening to it now and what happened to it last month? What's the difference between what's happening to it now and what happened to it a year ago? Which categories, vendors, which elements of my inventory are performing for me? And so when we talk about having an analysis of your inventory, we're saying let's take a look at some trending. The two graphs here are just something that is available within the software that we represent, but certainly having a visual view of what kind of activity is going on within your inventory is going to help you make decisions about what are the right things to hang on to and what are not the right things to hang on to. Thanks.
Yeah, and Lee, I know also, this is just a sample of, a couple reports. I know, like with our clients, we've got over 200 reports in the system, so they use multiple reports to get some of the analytical performance information. So sometimes you need to look at, more than just one type of report or one set of information to be able to make some of your decisions.
You're right. And each of those reports has a different function.
Yes, they do.
And when we talk about business intelligence, or when we talk about assembling information, the previous slide we talked about a list, what has good gross margin, what's selling. But we want to be looking at information that's more inclusive. We want to be looking at things like shipping lead time. Historically, what is the shipping lead time? Is it getting longer? Is it getting shorter? That's going to impact how many items I need to have on order. We talk about rate of sale. It's one thing to have a list that tells us that something sold 10 last month. It's quite another to have a program or report that tells me I sold 10 last month, the month before that I sold 6, the month before that I sold 2. So the recommendation when we talk about replenishing inventory is now based on some intelligence where the system is saying we've got a trend going here. Conversely, a good reporting system is going to give you a rate of sale that would tell you that we were at 10 6 months ago, 4 months ago you sold 6, and last month you sold 2. And so this kind of business, this dynamic view of your business is important in order to get good information for managing your inventory. Gross margin, certainly we want to know about gross margin. We want to know whether or not the item is performing. But gross margin then flows into a measurement we call GMROI, gross margin return on investment. And this kind of a calculation is a lot more difficult to do in your head. It's a lot more difficult to do looking at an Excel spreadsheet. So again, with good reporting, what you can begin to immediately take a look at is, you know what, I've lowered the price on this thing. My margin came down. However, my sales volume went up. I'm actually making more money with this. And keep in mind that whenever you're thinking about what changes you might make to your inventory model, the folks who are in the big box business of managing billions of dollars of inventory, these kinds of things are very, very important to them. They're not as concerned with hitting a 43 or a 56 or a 73 if I'm in the apparel industry, but they're more important, they're more interested in what's the right price at the right velocity to make me the most money. And that's a function of GMROI. And that's where having good reporting is so important. Return rate. If you don't have a way to track that, certainly you're going to want to understand that your return rate impacts your gross margin and it impacts your GMROI. If I've got items that are selling like crazy and I look at one side of the ledger and I'm saying to myself, golly, this guy, man, we are rocking with this thing. This is a great product. And I'm ignoring the fact that 20% of them are coming back through the back door. I'm not being fair in my analysis of the inventory. I've got other items I might be looking at in that category to replace those. Too high maintenance if I have to bring a lot of it back. And so again, simply looking at a list is not the easiest way to get the answers to those kinds of questions. Thanks, Terry.
Once we know how to spot our winners, the next thing we want to do is we really want to base our reorder quantities on the actual business intelligence. What does that mean? We want to look at not only just the sales that we've had, but also the ordering that we've been doing in the past. We want to look at the timing of that ordering, how long it's been taking to get merchandise in. We also want to look at quantity reorder requirements. Sometimes you'll have minimums that you have to do. So that's all part of the actual business intelligence. Once we get all that, then we want to be able to accumulate that information to help us make smart buying decisions.
So what kinds of things do we define as business intelligence? Again, if we've got a rate of sale report that's giving me something more than just a list, that's telling me what's trending. If I can take a look at my floor and say to myself, gee, I've got X amount of my floor devoted to the bedroom category or to the dining room category, how's my category performance holding up relative to how much display I've got invested on my floor? A lot of retailers can very quickly take a look at the ratio of display to their ratio of category sales and say to themselves, wow, I love casual dining. It's a great opportunity. I've got a great vendor. The rep's been a friend of the family for years and years and years, and then they look at the report and go, holy smokes, casual dining sucks. I've got casual dining is costing me money. Nice rep, nice line, great stuff, wrong market for it. This store doesn't do casual dining. I'm a formal dining kind of guy, and that's really where I need to put my emphasis. So by getting good analysis by category, a good analysis by vendor, And vendors interesting because what you can find from the vendors, you may have a lot of velocity, but maybe really crummy margins because the vendor in your particular market might be giving you some cost or some pricing pressures, and it doesn't really jump off the page at you until you start comparing it to other vendors and you say, wow, look at this. This vendor's GMROI is not performing as it used to. We're starting to slide. Margins are starting to slip. Maybe I need to find a replacement in that area for that kind of merchandise. Certainly, if you've got a good business intelligence at your fingertips, you're going to be able to then more easily manage a lineup where you can plug in the items that you feel are necessary for you to have at a certain price point for each category. And these kinds of things are much easier to manage if you can automate that. And then, of course, the big boy in business intelligence is automated purchasing recommendation. Having the ability to have the system tell you, as I mentioned earlier, what's trending. Is this beginning to accelerate in sales? Is it beginning to decline in sales? The alternative to a good business reporting in the purchase advice area is what we call par stock. And we talk with retailers all day long who are new coming onto our system, or even folks who've been on the system for a while, and they say, well, but I always want to have 4 of these in stock. I always want to have 6 of these in stock. And our answer is always the same. You realize when it dies, the day the product dies on your floor, you're going to own 4 or you're going to own 6. And so being a responsible retailer and managing your inventory means I don't want to be holding 4 when it dies. I want to be down to my floor sample. I don't want to be holding 6 when it dies. Or I keep ordering 2, and the system, if it's doing its job, is telling me, you know what, you need to have 4 in the pipeline. Your lead time is too long on this product. You're selling it well when you have it in stock. You need to up your buying quantity. And so par stock is a trap that many retailers fall into. And it results in not having good sellers on hand. It results in always being overstocked when something passes away, as I say, in the retail world. Mrs. Customer has moved on to something else, and I still have 4. So that's what business intelligence and good reporting can do for you.
And Lee, I know some people might be out talking about thinking, I just do stock, so this is great. But what if I do a lot of special orders? Can I measure those special orders? And the answer is yes. When you've got the good information, then it'll help us figure out the trending on the collections, what the vendor performance is. Do I have one vendor that's performing better than another, whether it's stock or special order or a combination of that type of stuff. I've also got some category performance, so I can see, is one of my categories performing better than another one? Like you said, you've got your dining room casual. That one's not performing well in my dining room. Formal is. I need to then use that to make some decisions and help me keep my inventory at the right levels for what's been selling. And then you've got the special order profitability. Things that our clients deal with daily is, when I'm doing these special orders, are they profitable? Are my salespeople using current pricing? Are they using something older? Do I have the right gross margins on these types of items? And then even within my special order items, I can get a breakdown and look at this by category and or a vendor. So I can start looking to see my special orders for a certain vendor. Am I getting the right gross margins? Are these items profitable for me? Do I need to increase my prices when I'm doing those? Do I need to educate my salespeople a little bit? So you can definitely use all of this information for stock and special order type items.
I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Many people, when they talk about managing inventory, they're thinking about the stuff that's in the warehouse that I'm backing up that's represented on the floor. I couldn't begin to remember all the times when you and I or the support group, we've gotten deep inside of someone's reporting because all of a sudden they're telling us, well, gee whiz, I don't know if I trust this because I sell a lot of flex steel special order, and I can't believe I'm only making 22% gross profit on it. And then they find out their #1 salesperson for flex steel special orders using an old price list. He's got his own book that he put together. He's been using it for years. I mean, it's amazing the kinds of things that we've discovered using the reporting that's available to us to catch things before they get out of hand and to identify things where we have a question. So you're absolutely right, and it's almost kind of fun to be a good detective when you've got good information in front of you and try and figure out what is not meeting my expectations and why. Where is it? Let's drill down. Let's find it. Great point. Perfect point. Thank you. So when we talk about trending, and I've mentioned it before, and I can't emphasize this enough, when our programmers are looking at options to delivering reports, and when I'm talking to retailers, and I've been in stores, we're constantly struggling with ways to deliver information, and this is what you should be looking for as a retailer. You should be looking for ways to get the information in front of you that's more than a list. That's more than a list. I need to know what's trending. I need to know what the customer's buying, what's working in my store, and what's not working. But trending and having a business reporting software package or some way to analyze it in such a way so that you can determine that your inventory is performing, this area is starting to do well and this area is starting to not do so well. I need to be able to jump on this as soon as possible, make good decisions so that I've got winners in stock and I'm managing the items that have started to fall off. So when you're looking at all of these things, when you're assembling your workflow to manage your inventory, always be looking at a way to check trending, not just what sold last month and what sold 3 months ago, but what's the process? I mean, is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Are the margins increasing? Are the margins decreasing? Is the lead time increasing or decreasing? What's happening that's impacting my ability to be the best merchant on the block?
So on to point 3, how do we become more nimble in reacting to our sales trends? We want to be able to look at those trends and see how it's been going. So like Lee, as you mentioned earlier, we want to compare, how are sales for a particular item, category, vendor, how are they doing this month versus how did they do last month versus how did they do last year? Like you said, they might be, trending down. Maybe, 2 months ago I sold 2, this last month I've sold 4, and this month so far I've done 7. So now I see that those trends are going up. So having the information available to help me quickly identify those trends and either get more merchandise in if I see that it's selling quickly, or if it's going the other direction, I'm not reordering as much, so I'm not getting stuck with it at the end.
We're going to move along here because we tried to keep this at about a half hour, and so we're going to try and get through this. But I just want to share a quick, what do I do? What do I do with the information? Had an opportunity a couple of years ago with a retailer to do targeted advertising on cable TV. They said, we can give it to you by zip code. In other words, I can throw an ad into a particular zip code. I thought, wow, that's a great idea, so let's do this. We had a vendor, Eckernis. Some of you may be familiar with them. We thought we were doing well with their ads. They've got some of the most fantastic television ads in the marketplace, but we weren't sure. Our Eckernis sales were creeping up. We felt like we were doing things right, but we said, okay, let's slam these zip codes with these ads, and then let's turn around and slice it, dice it, and see what happened. This is the kind of business intelligence that we're talking about. At the end of a 6-week period, looking at written business for that vendor for those areas versus written business for that vendor for other areas, and comparing with the historical averages over that period of time and that time of year and with the other events that were going on, it was hands down proven that those ads were a winner. And we needed to put them into our full market. We needed to make sure that we were running them whenever they came along and that we had an opportunity to get them out there, negotiate good prices and really ride that horse. And we weren't guessing. We had the right information in front of us so that we could make that decision. And so that's the kind of reporting that we're talking about, is being able to push a button and say, give me sales by zip code for this vendor for this period of time, written business not delivered, and then give it to me for that same period of time last year and tell me what we got. Bang, we were able to sort it out very quickly. Literally in a matter of 15 minutes we made our decision. We knew where we needed to go. Thanks, Terry. There's an old saw in advertising: half my advertising dollars are wasted. The issue is I don't know which half. And if you can get good information in front of you, certainly you can begin to attack that. Okay, so what do we do now? Inventory merchandising is a full-time job. We know that. It should be a full-time job, but we got all this other stuff going on. We got truck drivers that don't show up for work. We've got salespeople who need training. We've got a new bookkeeper. I've got a vendor that's going to come in this afternoon. The phone's ringing off the hook. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And so if you leave this little session with one thing, think about this. And I'm just going to use a personal experience. I stole this idea from somebody else. I did not make this up. But I found it to be a brilliant use of my time, and I became a brilliant merchandiser as a result. I took every Thursday and I blocked it out. I didn't take any phone calls on Thursday, no reps on Thursday. Don't talk to me on Thursday. No talk to me, as my grandson says. On Thursdays, I would take a category, and I would take that category and tear it apart. I'd look at it by vendor. I'd look at my displays. I'd walk my floor with my reports. I would take a look at what's working and what's not working. I'd also be making a decision on my floor what's sold that should come off the floor, because on Thursday, at the end of my event on Thursday, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make a decision about what I should be buying and what I should probably be getting rid of in that category that I'm working with today. I'm also going to make a decision about what pieces should be removed from the floor, because on Friday, half a day, my trucks were scheduled to be doing floor moves. I only delivered half a day, and this was in this particular operation. Everybody's operation is going to be a little bit different. But I needed a half a day on Friday to get the sold stuff off the floor, get the new stuff on the floor. What's the new stuff that I brought to the floor? That was based on the information I had in good reporting that told me these are the items that are in the warehouse, and I know that this is a category that's doing well. If I don't have room for two, I know which one of the two is going to go to my floor because I've done my homework. And so think about taking one day of your week. If you're going to leave here with an action plan, think about taking one day of the week and just tear a category apart. Now, what I would do heavy categories more frequently. In other words, once a month I would hit upholstery. Once a month I would hit living room case goods. Once a month I would hit bedroom. So I might do upholstery and lighting. I might do bedroom and bedding. So I would make sure that I hit all of my categories over a period of time. But I hit the more important ones, the ones that had more velocity. I hit them more often. So I certainly was going to do more than one category each Thursday. But that was what I did on Thursdays. Got ready for the rest of the week. Made sure that my floor was ready for the weekend, made sure that I knew what was winning and what wasn't. That way, when I did my sales meeting on Saturday, I could explain to my salespeople what got marked down and what was heading out the door. Thanks. Because if you've got this information in front of you, what does that mean? That means you've got an action plan for October, April. If you're going to Vegas, you're going to go to those markets, and you want to know if you want to have a mission when you go to market, if you want to know what you're going to do there rather than just wander the halls, then do this good homework with the reporting that you've got. Our clients have got reports that they take with them. They can get online right from market if they need to get to their software. But you want to have a specific mission in mind. You want to know where you're going. You want to know what you're keeping. Here's a winner. This is a vendor I need to look at and see if they've got some parallel product that might add to the winners. These are my holes because these are vendors and categories and product that I'm eliminating from my lineup because they're not performing for me. And so when we went to market, it was a 3-day affair, but there were vendors that I worked with all day long that I might not even stop into at market. I had a good thing going with them. Everybody knew what we were doing. It was fine. I had to spend that time filling in my holes and adding where I needed to fill in, going to those places where I thought I was going to take the most opportunity to make more money in my store. So I had a game plan when I went to market, and a lot of our clients do. They take this good information, they take it to market with them, and they know exactly what they're going to do while they're there. Thanks.
All right. So now we want to gain greater control over our inventory and increase that profitability. But there's more to it than just tracking what we sell.
almost everybody can get you a list, or I have a list as a retailer of what's sold. Not that difficult. Somewhere along the way, whether it's a ledger or I've got some kind of data management program, I can get a list together. What's equally important with what my winners are that I've got to keep in stock in order to grind through and generate some income, I need to know what's not working. And good business intelligence gives you both ends of the spectrum. A sales analysis report of some sort tells me what's sold. What I want, in addition to what's sold, is what's not working. Because if it hasn't sold, I need to make them sell. I already own it. I've spent the money. So I've got to recognize that slow product is costing me money. It costs me money to insure it. I've got guys that have to keep moving around it. I got to keep track of it. I got to inventory it. They bang into it with a picker, and now I've got to fix it, and it's already discontinued. No longer is anybody buying it. So good business intelligence, good inventory management is a double-edged sword. With one blade, you're slicing through the sales and making sure that you've got a winner, cutting the competition to smithereens, and with the other side, you're slicing into your own inventory, trying to figure out how to get rid of these dogs. But keep in mind, on my Thursday project, part of what I was doing is getting my list together of those items that just weren't selling anymore. And rather than running store-wide sales and putting my winners on sale and taking huge hits in margin, I would take those dogs out to the floor, and by golly, did I put some great prices on them. My customers could come into my store 52 weekends a year, and 52 times a year they saw a totally different mix of really, really good-looking product. Not dinged up, not scratched, not all beat up, but simply slow-moving product. Product that the customers in my market they elected not to buy it. It just wasn't selling. And so I need to move those items off, and I use that opportunity to create my discounts with those items, free up the cash, and go get something better. So having reporting is more than just what's selling. It's also about what isn't selling and making sure that you've got a handle on what's piling up in the warehouse. How old is it? You should certainly know that. And what did I pay for it? Thanks.
One other thing to consider is don't be afraid to ask for help. Things that you want to start to think about is understand your vendors' shipping and your freight opportunities. I know sometimes you don't reevaluate and don't negotiate your freight rates, so discuss that with your vendors or your shipping companies. A lot of times you're using some old ones, and you can renegotiate those and get them down, and that's a substantial savings to you at the end. You can also look to see, can you consolidate freight with other nearby dealers? Maybe if you're sharing that, you can start saving some money with that. Also, look and see if you have access to a freight buying group. I know with our Profit family members, I believe last year they saved a little over $1.3 million. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I believe it's been about $10.5 million that our customers have saved overall. That is savings and money that goes directly to your bottom line. So start looking around and see other places where you can start get some savings in there, keeping some of your costs down that's going to directly affect your profit.
And this is kind of like shopping for insurance. You know, the old rule is, you know, pick a time, every 2 years, every 18 months, whatever, you should be shopping for new liability insurance, automobile insurance, so forth, because the market is changing all the time. I know I can remember years ago, everything came in on Harold Shull, because he was the guy that came out of North Carolina, and by golly, that's how we get our furniture. At that time, I was up in Michigan. But I learned a little late in the game, in fact, that there were other guys in town who'd come up with better deals with other folks, and so we started piggybacking with them. We did get into a freight buying group. It's something you need to look at on a regular basis. Keep in mind, knowing that you're making weekly decisions that will improve your competitive position and make your store more money is mission 1 in managing your inventory. There isn't anything more important when you consider this is where most of your money's tied up. This is my biggest asset. Almost every furniture store that is bought and sold for the value of the inventory. It's the only thing that's worth anything. For a lot of folks, when they start looking at buying a store, they say, yeah, I know you got a good name, I know you got a nice building and so forth. But it comes down to the value of the inventory. This is the real gold nugget. This is the thing that you've got a lot your livelihood invested in. And so what we're asking is, be looking at information so that you can manage your inventory in such a way that you're sharper than the guy down the street. You've got more left over at the end of the day to run your business than the guy down the street. Be the sharpest guy on the block with inventory management, and you will make money. If you assemble the information that we've talked about, schedule your time, set time aside. I know it's tough, but I had reps come in on Thursdays unannounced, and when the office knew, sorry, Lee's not around. He's not here for you today. Make sure you accumulate your information, build your lists. If you've got data management, you want to be able to report the kind of information you need, not just I sold 10. Well, what's going on with this guy? Is it getting better or getting worse? And then act on your information. Take that time that you've set aside and make decisions that you can pass on. Bring your buyers in if they need to be part of that decision-making process. Then they need to be in on those meetings, or they need to be managing those meetings. And scheduling that time to make sure that there's something being done with the information. Act on it and drive that inventory down. We've got clients that are getting 2 and 3 times the industry averages for turns. They're getting much higher, industry average of $1.80, $2 GM ROI. We're talking to people who are getting $8, $9 GM ROI. It can be done, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes an enormous amount of commitment to focusing on getting this information in front of you and then making a decision with it. And with those steps in hand, you can grow your business. And in many cases, for a lot of folks, the first thing that happens is they free up a ton of cash. That old inventory is cash. If you don't have to spend that money to fill that slot on the rack, why, it's amazing what that can do to the health of your business as well.
All right. Do we have any questions that have come through, Lee, that you'd like to address while we still have everybody on with us?
Well, let's take a look here. Chuck's wondering about inventory aging and what actions are based on that, and it's a critical question, and it's an important question because we talked about winners and losers. We talked about things that are winners especially, and being able to track that. But inventory aging, and that's I'm just going to use this. This is a blatant plug for our software, but we spend an awful lot of time and energy on that. We have a couple of different approaches to managing inventory based on the aging, based on how old it is, and allowing the retailer to set the criteria. I have goods that I want to consider to be getting long in the tooth when they're 60 days old. The next guy says I want to be measuring that category at 120 days, and we have the opportunity within the software to break that into 6 different periods, okay, and then also tell the software discount it 10% first, 10, another 10, another 10, 20, whatever you need to do. It's totally flexible. But to your question, is inventory aging important? Absolutely. If something's fallen off and it's not selling and it's starting to get old, you need to start hitting it with markdowns. You need to start managing that piece and getting it off your shelf. Free up the cash, get back in business. Remember the 80-20 rule. 80% of what I buy is a dog. 20% is going to pay the bills. That 80%, you got to keep eyeballs on that all the time. It's as important as keeping the winners in stock if you want to keep your cash flow. Brian's wondering, what would you track both core and obsolete aged inventory based on the same parameters? My parameters are typically going to be based on either category or vendor. I will age accessory items a little differently than I'll age upholstery items. I might say, you know what, I can live with something that's still in my inventory after 200 days if it hasn't been selling real well. I'm not going to cut it, and I'm not going to do a 50% markdown on it because I only turn this category once a year. So having that kind of information in front of me that says this is a category you're turning 1.3 times a year, yeah, I'll move the grid out a little bit. I'm not going to get too worried about something that's 90, 120 days old. Starts to get closer to 200 days old, I might be taking a look at it. Now, in another category, I might very definitely be saying I need to see some traction with this piece, and I need to see it right away. Now, I've got another question that came up here, but I'm going to put an umbrella over this this idea of of inventory aging and keeping track of all of that. Keep in mind, nothing sells unless it's on the floor. At the very least, when you're looking at your reporting and the kinds of information that's available to you, I used to run this report when I would go in people's stores, and it would absolutely drive me crazy because they had good information in their system. And the report that I ran was, what's available in the warehouse to be displayed that's not on the floor? If it got to be over 2 pages long, I'd start freaking out. And I've run reports that were 15 and 20 pages long. And so back to this idea of obsolete inventory based on the same parameters, I'm going to set my parameters up by category, but I'm going to be looking at that report to make sure that my goods are on the floor, because it can become aged, quote, aged, simply because I haven't put it on display. And then I've got guys that say, well, I want to cheat the system. I want to call it, I got it yesterday because I put it on the floor. When did you buy it and pay for it? October of last year. Well, that's when you got it. let's get smarter about getting it on the floor and getting it out in front of the customer so she can make a decision about whether she loves it or not. You might have a winner sitting back here. You might have a home run sitting back there. Import versus domestic. I think that one of the biggest jam up for us in managing inventory was the advent of having to buy in containers or part of a container. Certainly, it was a challenge for us in managing inventory flow and trying to figure out what a good way to make a recommendation would be. You know, you've got inventory that comes in 100 pieces on, I got 100 pieces on June 1st, and then I don't have any more of it coming until October 1st. But if you've got good business intelligence, you can be taking a look at what's here, what's in the pipeline, anticipated delivery dates. The system will actually keep track of, or should keep track of, what the actual lead times are. You know, from the time I place a PO until it actually hits my dock, what's the lead time, what can I expect? And with that, I can manage my imports a little more effectively. Keep in mind when you're looking at GMROI or you're trying to measure the performance of your inventory, people will sometimes take an inventory snapshot and they'll say, well, gee, my GMROI is really good. Yeah, because the next day you had a container hit, and that's when you actually had a lot of inventory on hand, and so your GMROI would look horrible on Thursday, where on Tuesday it looks great. You need to average all of these things out, and GMROI is something you can look up in terms of how to do the actual mathematic calculation. But this import thing is a major challenge for a lot of folks. There is tools within most software, and certainly within our software package, that will help you get a better handle on what you should have in the pipeline based on buying import and domestic. A lot of folks have found that I'll use Eckerness as an example, they've got warehouses in the States. The cost is going to be a little bit higher. If your velocity goes up and you're paying a little more for it, your GMROI can actually improve, even though you're paying more money for the product. So you have to make those decisions based on what's working for you and your customer. Oh, here's a great question. I love this. The system sounds like it's scaled for larger stores. What about small operations under $1 million? It's a great question, Dennis. We have companies doing $100 million running Profit System software. We have companies doing $800,000 a year using Profit System software. I can remember when I was running a Lazy Boy showcase years ago, we had a manager leave in a 40,000 square foot full-line furniture store, and the owner came to me and he said to me, would you be willing to go down there and see if you can run that store? And I said, yeah. He said, well, doesn't it bother you that it might be a bit intimidating? And I said, look, the only difference between this store and that store is the size of the carpet on the floor. We buy stuff and we sell stuff. Yep, I got a larger list of SKUs, but everything I'm doing with my small list over here, I have to do with the larger list over there. I do exactly the same things. And so this question is important because people who are running smaller operations often think of themselves as smaller operations, and so they do smaller operation business decisions. They do things by hand. They wait too long to make a decision about whether something's working or not. Whether you've got a 15,000 square foot footprint doing $1 million a year, or you've got 50 stores doing $100 million a year, the decisions that you're making to move inventory through your system are identical. They are identical. I need to be smart about it. Maybe instead of having 10 back up in the warehouse, I've got 2. I still need to make sure that I've got that displayed properly and that I'm doing the right thing. And so good business intelligence, and this is an interesting question because we've had a lot of folks start out with the software who were doing bedding specialty. They might have started with 1 or 2 stores, certainly under $1 million. We had one fellow start with 6 stores. He's at 52 right now. He got there because he's using exactly the same buying model today that he was using back then. The difference is they're unloading 12, 15 trucks a week instead of 1. But they're using the same rules. So it's a great question. And I sometimes get Terry Ann, I'm sure this is going to come back to bite me. I'll get an odd look at somebody when I say, we need to put our big boy pants on and act like a big box store if we want to succeed in the market today, because the pressures on retailers are enormous. They're much higher than what they used to be. Between the internet and trying to find good salespeople, trying to circle the wagons and keep my expenses under control. If I can manage my inventory, I can win. If I can manage my inventory, I can win the war. Absolutely, Dennis. We know who you are, and we will get back with you certainly and answer any additional questions that you have. I don't have any other questions in the queue right now, Terry Ann. Oh,
right.
I didn't.
And
I didn't until just now.
Oh.
What is a reasonable inventory turn number for container furniture versus appliance, electronics, fast turn categories? Trick question. Thanks, Brian. Inventory turns for containers is tough. If your category is performing at 2.5 turns, then whether it's container or not, you want to try and stay within that realm. And I would say the measurement that I would use to be more effective in measuring my inventory performance is GMROI. And if your GMROI is a foreign number to you, it's the average inventory on hand, either by product, individual product, by category, by vendor, whatever you want to use as your benchmark. It's the inventory dollars average for the year. Again, that container thing will screw you up. If it's not here on Tuesday and I use that inventory and it shows up on Thursday and I use that inventory, my result's different. Average inventory on hand divided into the gross margin dollars for that particular category, product, vendor that you're measuring. So inventory, average inventory. So if I average $100,000 worth of inventory on hand and I have a gross margin of $300,000 at the end of a year, this has to always be annualized. So if in 12 months I've done $300,000 worth of margin dollars, I have a GMROI of $3. You should be taking a look at your inventory macro view. What's my total inventory on hand average, and what is my total gross margin dollars for the store? You're going to come up with a number. If you're in the industry averages, you're going to come up with something like $1.85, something just short of $2. We tell people if you're below $1.65, sell the business. You're already underwater. However, if I know that my GMROI is $2 and I've got a vendor that's given me $5.50, that's not the guy I need to worry about. The guy I need to worry about is the guy that's giving me 87 cents GMROI. Or within a category, product that's delivering 87 cents GMROI versus other product in that category that's giving me $3, $4, $5. So again, inventory dollars on hand divided into the gross margin dollars that I've received as a result of sales. And that gives me a GMROI. I think that's a better term to measure inventory performance by than turns, because turns can only tell me how many sticks I'm moving. It doesn't take into account how long it took me to get them, how long were they sitting here, and how much margin did I put into it, or did I get back out of it. I hope I answered the question. Thank you very much. You've been most generous. So many of you stayed with us all the way into the 20 minutes over our anticipated webinar time. Certainly, if you're interested in learning more about what we have to offer, I think Terry Ann can fill you in with some information here.
We can. You can just go ahead and contact us at the psinfo@profitsystems.com or call us at the 800-888-5565, and we can get you some information. If you're just interested in looking at some of the stuff, what is Profit Systems, what's the company, what do we have? If you go to the profitsystems.com, you can also get that information there. And then as a reminder, we will be sending you a link to this presentation, so if you want to review any of it, you will have that available. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so very much.